We are coming up on 3 years since Wesker came to DBD, and just about 6 months since he came to 2v8. Now, since 2v8, I have been fiending for a third bound in regular 1v4 DBD, and I want to explain exactly why, even mathematically, why Wesker needs a third bound. Now, just a baseline, I think Wesker needs just a few buffs just to normalize his power, and honestly, just to make him feel a little bit better. With the kind of major nerf to his infection, his chase power as a mobility tool doesn't really work anymore. You kind of have to walk everywhere just because you can't really rely on your infection to slow down the game. And so using your 11-second cooldown power to get around the map isn't viable anymore. So just as a baseline, I think Wesker should get a third bound. Now with 2v8, I don't know what the hell they were thinking, but your first bound was a unicorn bound. Your second bound was a walkie second bound, so the longest bound you can have. And then the third one was just a regular second bound attached onto that. It felt weird as hell. I would love to play with a normal version of a 3-bound Wesker. So he needs a third bound, which his pull-up power is 1.5 seconds long. I think his pull-up time needs to be about 1.4 or 1.3, just to make it feel a little bit better. I do think they need to remove the infection passive. It really only benefits you if you are absolutely stomping the lobby, getting half a second from 1 or 2 survivors each. It doesn't really do anything in the grand scheme of things. Now, because we have a third bound, I think the flat recharge time per token should be 4.5 seconds, so that's 13.5 seconds total, and reduce the power cooldown time. Whenever Wesker either uses 2 bounds or lets the chain window to use your second bound end, he goes on a 3-second cooldown. I believe it is one of the longest, if not the longest, end of power cooldowns in the game, and this should be like 2.7, if not 2.5, to match plenty of other killers. Now that I have all the flat buffs that I think Wesker needs, allow me to explain mathematically why Wesker needs a third bound. So he has a 1.5 second pull-up time while he's moving 3.68 meters per second. You get about 5.5 meters there. With his 2 bounds, base, unicorn, and walkie is 21 meters, 19.6, and 22.4, respectively. And the end of power cooldown is 3 seconds long, also at 3.68 meters per second, and he gets about 11 meters there. Altogether, for just base Wesker, you get 37 meters traveled with an average speed of 6.18 meters per second. For Unicorn, 36 meters traveled with a rough 6 meters per second speed. And with Walkie, you get 39 meters and a 6.5 meters per second speed. Why does this matter? Both Houndmaster and Dracula have a movement speed ability outside of their chase ability that mimics Wesker. With Dracula, he has a bat form that puts him at 6.5 meters per second, and Houndmaster has a search command that puts her at 6 meters per second flat. So Wesker is putting his power on an 11-second cooldown to go just as fast as other killers that are directly in competition with his ability, and they have next to no, if a half-second cooldown to move as fast as he does. Now, if you add a third bound that is directly a direct copy of the second bound, you get 49 meters traveled, just a regular Wesker, at 7.8 meters per second, which is a 21% increase in his average movement speed. For Unicorn, you get 45 meters traveled with a 7.5 meters per second movement speed, and that is a 20% increase. And with Walkie, you get a whopping 53 meters traveled and an 8.1 meters per second travel speed, with a 25% increase. With this proposed third bound added to Wesker, he gets such a big benefit to his map control that he once had with his infection that no longer exists. And since Wesker has come to 2v8 with 3 bounds, we've had 2 full chapters and 2 mid chapters pass, and absolutely nothing has happened to him. And now, because you have an original killer that, frankly, they're just being lazy about and letting the community decide what it is, I think is a perfect time to buff Wesker.